I believe that there are always ways in which you can improve your life. For all of you who are going to be the highly successful leaders of our generation, improvement is something that is probably one of your priorities. Today, I want to talk to you about why I believe one of the most important improvements you can make in your life is in your passion, perseverance, and work ethic. In other words, in your grit. One of the stories that we heard about a lot when we were children was the tortoise and the hare. Our parents and teachers like to use this story to warn us against being too cocky or overconfident. They ingrained in us that slow and steady wins the race, but never really told us why. I think the answer to this question lies in the tortoise's attitude throughout the entire tale. In my own life, I've had to run a race against my own overconfidence when it comes to my grades. I started public school in first grade, but test scores indicated that I should skip that year. This was the beginning of adults constantly telling me about how smart I was and me consequently believing it. Throughout the next 11 years, I had proven to myself that I was almost a genius. See, I had gotten a couple B's, but those were weighted to A's, and that means I kept to keep my 4.0 without really even trying that hard. When I got to college, I was writing on a scholarship, so that means that B's wouldn't cut it anymore. But without knowing the skills to effectively study and manage my time, and without the willingness to get past any roadblocks in my academic career, my GPA plummeted, and I was put on probation for my scholarship. In this situation, my mentality resembled a lot of the hare's mentality in the story. I was very overconfident about my grades, and I fell asleep at the finish line and let my own bad habits cross before me. I could have been a lot more like the tortoise and seen it as an opportunity, but I didn't. I first learned about grit in an honor seminar that I took last semester. I originally tucked it away in the back of my mind, thinking it wasn't something that applied to me because I had always gotten all A's, so why would I need to consider improving anything? Over winter break, I decided to revisit this idea of grit and see where I can implement it in my own life in order to improve the way that I did things in an effort to get my scholarship back. In the seminar, we watched a presentation by a psychologist named Angela Duckworth. From her, I learned that grit is the ability to persist and the determination to finish no matter what obstacles in your way. This is a skill and an attitude everyone, no matter whether they're a student, athlete, or a community leader, can benefit from adopting. Simply put, grit is a combination of work ethic, perseverance, and passion. Work ethic is a skill that takes a lot more fine-tuning and concentration to get down than the other two pillars of grit. It means giving everything. So if you only have 40% in your tank, it means giving every single drop of that 40% into whatever it is that you're doing, whether that be relationships, schoolwork, or something else. It's a lot harder to perfect without the right attitude, which is where perseverance and passion come in. They make up the attitude side of grit. Without perseverance, which is the ability to push through getting over, around, or through whatever hurdle is put in your way, then it makes giving up a lot easier if you don't have it. The third pillar is passion. And in Angela Duckworth's presentation, she said that the most important part of grit is seeing your work as meaningful, important, and interesting. So if you don't care about what your goal is, therefore you're not passionate about it, you can never reach it because you simply don't care enough to put the work in. Therefore, without passion, the other two pieces of grit fall apart. The tortoise in the story exhibited all three of these pillars of grit. He used perseverance and work ethic to get from the start line to the finish, but he used passion to get to the start line in the first place. Without passion and without wanting to prove what he could do despite the possibility of winning or losing, he wouldn't have been there in the first place. Altering my habits to be more successful fulfilled the first part of grit, the skill part, but I needed to think more about the attitude. In order to have a more tortoise-like mindset, I needed to assess whether I was interested in the things I was supposed to be learning about. In the last semester, none of my classes were interesting to me, therefore making it difficult for me to succeed. So I revamped my schedule and found things that were interesting, making the grit mindset a lot easier to implement in my own life because I was passionate about the things that I was learning about. Mine and the Hares experience is one that's not uncommon in many high school and college classrooms. A lot of people are like me, skating by on basic habits and getting A's throughout their whole academic career, or a lot of like student athletes and musicians who have base talent to begin with but then never create good practice regimens. A New York Times article titled "What Straight A Students Get Wrong" explained how students who easily got above average grades in high school were more likely to shrink away or beat themselves up over challenges later down the road. A lot of people with this mentality think that getting a grittier mindset wouldn't be worth it because it means failure a couple times while you're learning what fits you best. But, like the article says, people who are successful like Steve Jobs and J.K. Rowling actually had a lower GPA, a lower than ideal GPA when they graduated from school. This means that failure is necessary to succeed along the way, and if you use these setbacks as a learning experience, that shows a lot more grit and progress than beating yourself up ever will. So now it's your turn. It's your turn to examine your habits and decide if they're helping you or hindering you from becoming a tortoise. Ultimately, having more grit is a choice which is completely up to you, and while it's influenced by peers, teachers, and parents, they can't change it for you. So I challenge you to look at yourself and decide if you're one of those people that's skating by on the bare minimum, and if you are, and you want to improve yourself, I challenge you to look for ways to improve the grit mindset in your life, like implementing it in your work ethic and changing some of those basic habits in your studying maybe, or making sure that you're studying things that you're interested in and passionate about. And if you already feel as though you have that grit-like mindset, always look for ways to improve it, because there's always room for improvement in everything. So, in the end, when you succeed in getting this grit-like mindset, it'll be worth the effort and the time that it cost.